I'll be back. Hey, how's it going, fam? This is just a quick video update to let you all know not to freak out, but I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break during the month of August, so you won't see very much content from me. Of course, I'm doing the usual vacation thing like a lot of people. I'm also working on a little project, and I can tell you somewhat about what it is. I'm illustrating a children's book, and it's going to educate children about the truth of diversity. So that's good. Can definitely look forward to that. People who are subscribed on Patreon and have been there for a while will be receiving a copy of that whenever it comes out. But yes, I've just been swamped, and I don't think that I can focus on all these different projects. And so, yeah, gonna take a little break. I've been going steady pretty much nonstop for 2.5 years now. Started back in December of 2015 with this channel. We're now basically around 24,000 subscribers, and you know, it's good. It's good to take some time to reflect on progress you've made and the goals that you want to accomplish. So I'm going to be doing some of that. But have no fear, I will return and I'll be stronger than ever. I'll also have my ability to live stream back in September. So, yeah, thanks to everyone who supports me. You know, if you have to stop your pledge or something, or you know, I hope that you will continue to do so, because I'm certainly looking forward to producing more content. The Nationalist Scorecard, those were some very big endeavors. It took me about 3 to 4 times as long to produce those, and they ended up being about 5 times or 6 times in length. So we'll see if I continue to do those. I want to at least do another one on Jordan Peterson, but you know, we'll see. It's a lot of work, I'll just say that. But yeah, please continue to spread the word about this channel, and if you'd like to collaborate with me, you can always go to my website and enter your information in the contact form there. Now, that is enough of the updates. Let's get on to the content. Believe it or not, there's actually some content, and Chase Rachel's, many of you may have heard, who I've had on this channel before. He also goes by Radical Capitalist. He was doxxed and fired, and so I sat down for a few minutes to chat with him about his fundraising efforts and libertarianism and the alt-right and this massive discrimination against our people and people who stand up for our people. So I hope you will enjoy that. Without further ado, here is my chat with Chase Rachels. So I'm here with Chase Rachels, who was recently doxxed and fired for his job, and as far as I know, this, and I'm gonna have him tell you about it, but basically, as far as I can tell, it was just for him defending white people, for him saying he's you know, pro-white, and not you know, nothing violent or anything like that. And his employer decided to let him go. He then started a GoFundMe, and well, why don't you tell people the whole story, Chase?
Sure. So for those of you who may not have heard of me or may have heard of my work but haven't really connected to me, I am the founder and editor-in-chief of radicalcapitalist.org. I've also published a couple of books. The first one titled A Spontaneous Order, The Capitalist Case for a Stateless Society. And more recently, I've published a book entitled White, Right, and Libertarian, which includes a foreword by Hans Hermann Hoppe. And so basically, the situation what happened with me recently is apparently someone had sent my former boss a few screenshots of some Facebook posts I've been making. Uh, Post regarding how white nationalism is perfectly compatible with libertarianism, things on some race realism topics and IQ, nothing spewing hate, nothing endorsing or condoning violence or anything illegal for that matter. Uh, just kind of putting out the facts and making a case for white people and wanting to protect them against what's clearly the social and legal targeting being perpetuated against them, or perpetrated against them, I should say. So my boss, who I had had a good relationship with for the past year and a half, I've been a stellar employee, no issues with my coworkers or the members who I served. Um, Brought me in to tell me that we have to let you go. We have to let you go because of your social media posts. Of course, he wouldn't reveal the identity of the person who sent those to him, but I'm sure it's some sort of leftist Antifa type, maybe even a self-proclaimed left libertarian, which tends to be my biggest enemy for whatever reason. Um,
You're
so anyway,
interacting with them the most, so that kind of makes
yeah,
sense.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm probably most visible to them, and unfortunately, there is a pretty large Antifa element in the ostensible libertarian community.
Hmm.
um, So he wouldn't reveal the identity, and he claimed it was hate speech, and they couldn't risk this, reflecting poorly on the company. And we kind of went back and forth. I mentioned how being pro-white doesn't mean being anti-other people, and how if it was any other political view, if I were a communist or a BLM, like Black Lives Matter supporter or Black nationalist, this wouldn't be an issue, the double standards and whatnot. But ultimately, they'd already made their decision. They weren't really interested in debate, and he even denied a request for a severance package or even a final 2 weeks just to tie us over, to get my family the support they need while I look for new employment. And this just happened to come at a bad time for us personally because we just paid off some back taxes and done some home improvement projects and fixed my car. So, anyways, I decided to make a GoFundMe page to sort of crowdsource some funds. And to my utter shock and pleasant surprise, we had a huge, huge base of support. Just outstanding. Just nothing that I would ever imagine would have ever happened. All the biggest names in this community were sharing it, from people such as yourself, Matthew, to also Richard Spencer. I've had Millennial Woes retweet some things, Trudell Tom, JF Guarepi, just everyone, and there's others too who I may have failed to mention. Just total support, total support. I'm even going on the Daily Show to talk about this in a few days too. Um, and we had reached our $5,000 GoFundMe goal within less than 24 hours. And this is a goal that I kind of thought was lofty to begin with. So it was amazing. But perhaps the same sort of crowd of leftists who had targeted me in the first place had discovered what we were doing. I guess it wasn't enough that they took away my job. They needed to take away my support, my funding, so they coordinated a mass reporting campaign to GoFundMe, issuing all sorts of libelous claims about who I was, what I was about, what I was doing, and they shut me down. They shut me down despite the fact that even in the description of this GoFundMe campaign, I was explicitly saying I'm pro-white, but this does not mean I am anti-people of color. This does not mean I endorse violence. I do not endorse violence or illegal activity, any kind whatsoever. I'm not here to endorse any of that. But it doesn't matter. Just being pro-white today, you must hate others. You must be endorsing violence against others. You must be a genocidal Nazi, one-tooth maniac, basically.
Well, and of course, they want to make it so that being pro-white is illegal. I mean, that's that's probably their goal is to, well, they do that in UK and in Europe. They're working on these hate speech laws and everything, but at least we in America we still supposedly have some amount of free speech, so they have to revert to these type of under the table tactics where they're just making sure
Yeah,
you can't get
just
fired.
totally underhanded. And you're right, it is scary because there are hate speech laws that would outlaw this sort of rhetoric, despite the fact that it's not meant to be aimed at hating other people, it's just meant to be protecting the interests of white people. Um, but anyways, uh, so I messaged them, I appealed the decision, and the following morning they had assured me that despite the fact, they acknowledged the fact, and despite the fact that they had shut down this GoFundMe campaign, they were still going to send me the funds that we had raised, which was a great relief. Um, but then only hours later, WePay, it's like a subsidiary of Chase Bank, said, nope, we're shutting this down. It's not going to happen. We're issuing refunds. So basically, we've been taking donations directly through PayPal and Bitcoin. If any of you here are interested in helping out too, there should be some links in this video itself. I know Matt has already graciously donated and many others. Um, and it's funny because just a week before this happened, Red Eyes, they lost their PayPal account. We just donated to them. And I think a big edge that our community is going to have from this social and legal targeting is our willingness to help each other whenever one of us gets into these hard times, because simply by voicing their peaceful and rational support for white people, not because of anything they've done bad on the job or not because of anything illegal or terroristic they've done, just because they're voicing concern for their people.
So what's happened since that time? Bring us up to speed. Like, have you gotten any of the money back? What's the status on that?
No, so what I ended up doing is I ended up messaging both GoFundMe and WePay again because each of them are trying to pass the hot potato, right? As far as liability is concerned, I threatened legal action if they don't issue the funds to me, like they said they were going to do, even after the campaign had been taken down, mind you. And I also sent a cease and desist letter to both places via certified mail. Hopefully that gets their attention and they follow through and they do what they were supposed to do. I'm not very hopeful for this, but I didn't want to do nothing, so we shall see.
Well, and $5,000, it's a lot of money if you're not working and you have a family. Um,
Yes.
that's it's it's very disheartening, and I know that some people maybe saw what was going on through all the channels and stuff that were graciously able to help you amplify your message and get the story out there. But my point is, for a lot of people, they hopefully the more they come at you, the greater the response will be from our people, and that they'll, that's what I'm trying to do with this video, is help encourage people to go support you if they haven't already, just because you can donate, like you said, through PayPal or whatever for now.
Right. I think that's what we really need to show these leftists is whenever they try to target one of us and whenever they try to rob us of one means of support, that we're going to redouble our efforts to make sure that not only do they get back what was taken from them, but they get back twice as much, to show them whenever you try to oppress one of us, it's only going to galvanize our support and make us more passionate and make us dig our heels down further in order to make sure one of our own is taken care of. That's going to have the exact opposite of their intended effect. And yeah, you're right. I'm the sole income provider for a family. I want to make sure my wife can stay home and watch the kids in a traditional sort of gender setup. It's worked well so far. And just for those who are kind of like critical of my being public about this while having a family, there were measures taken. I blocked all of my coworkers on social media so they wouldn't see these things. I didn't work at some big company, corporation where they're really sensitive about image issues. It was a private club with only a few hundred members that I worked for. And clearly my measures weren't sufficient, but it wasn't just some arbitrary and haphazard uh, workings on my end. There were preventative measures taken. It just turns out in our society now that even those aren't sufficient. And it's when you're in this community, you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place because either you can be silent and be safe, or be anonymous and be safe. And if you're silent, you're not making any change. And if you're anonymous, your movement can be discredited very easily because people just say you're a bunch of stock accounts, despite the fact it's because of their death threats, because they're getting you fired from your jobs, and all these other intimidating factors that we're having to do that. So
Yeah, I don't put any blame on you. I know there probably are people who throw that on you, but it's not the same argument as, oh, you were walking down a dark alley, and somebody beat you up. You shouldn't have been walking down the alley. It's like you have to make a living somehow, and we can't allow it to be the case where there's this hostile environment for people who go anywhere near white nationalism or white identity or anything like that, because then things will just get worse. And you have to have some people who are speaking up. And I think maybe like myself, you came into this already sort of a public figure. It's not like you at some point made the decision. I self-doxed myself from the beginning, so I just don't have a choice anymore. It's in some ways it's liberating because you just have to keep going. There's I mean,
yeah, I did. I did come in this movement
and
already.
It's not like you were going around your workplace like saying, I don't like black people. It wasn't any of this.
That's just the thing. In fact, I never brought this to work, and I made that point very clear. In fact, I worked with black people and Hispanics nearly every day, and my relationship with them was great. There was never any issues. In fact, they tended to prefer working with me as opposed to some other people. So it was never as if there was any discrimination issue within the workplace.
Now, let me ask you: Did you have a customer-facing role, or was it more of internal?
Yeah. It was it was a private club, so I would have to serve members and their needs, and I would also manage a rental cabin programs, and so I'd have to deal with the housekeeping crew that was mostly black and sometimes Hispanic, and we got along great. And so it was never my views were never brought to work, and even if they were, my views don't include a hatred of other people's. My views only include wanting to have a homeland for our people, and at the very least, wanting to have our people stop being robbed to subsidize other people's, to stop bringing in massive amounts of third worlders into exclusively white countries, and to defend us against the social harassment we face every day. We are the only people to where it's not only legal, but even kosher and encouraged to discriminate against, despite the fact that the reasons for discriminating against us aren't because we tend to be more violent, because we tend to be lazy or irresponsible. No, it's for the opposite. It's because our ability to produce, our ability to be great enterprisers and innovators and to be prosperous has engendered envy in a lot of people. And it's from a place of envy that we are discriminated against, despite the fact that our very presence, and Hoppe talks about this, our very presence and workings in the world, this sort of European traditional heteropatriarchy, capitalist patriarchy, is what has enabled these other peoples with other alternative lifestyles to live at the living standards they currently do, that they are actually hurting themselves by hurting us because they're like the parasite trying to kill the host. The host goes, so do they. So it's talking about this in a very defensive capacity, not an offensive one, which unfortunately is conflated with hateful and violent rhetoric when it could be anything but. It's speaking out against the hate and the violence that's already being used against us as a people specifically.
Right, and going to the parasite and host analogy, I suppose this is sort of why you preach libertarianism, if you will, because one certain way to deal with this is to make sure there isn't like a government institution that can enable parasitism. So can you talk about, because I know there's a lot of people who are in the alt-right or whatever who started out as libertarians, and I think you've gone towards white identity, but you haven't you're still very much in the libertarian camp. You consider yourself that, and talk about that with as many people as possible. So can you talk about that decision?
There's a lot of misconceptions about the alt-right in libertarian circles and vice versa. And this is because people are having a difficult time compartmentalizing. These are two very distinct philosophies. Yet, at the same time, and this is the case I've been making, they're very complementary. To the alt-righter, I would remind them that libertarianism, at least genuine libertarianism, not this perverted leftist egalitarian bullshit that's infecting the libertarian community at the moment. Genuine libertarianism, like in a Hoppian way, it's centrally about private property, and it doesn't have any remarks about culture or sociology. It's just a legal philosophy. It doesn't portray itself to be the answer to all things and all questions, only to legal questions. And the essence of private property is exclusion, and the essence of exclusion is discrimination. So already we can see that libertarianism is very much not just compatible, but conducive to alt-right ends. And in a sort of anarcho-capitalist or libertarian society, everyone has to bear the full cost of their individual choices and actions. And this has a very natural eugenic effect. It promotes responsible, lower time preference behavior. And it promotes a sort of cooperation, and it sort of disincentivizes antisocial or lewd or degenerate behavior. Because you engage in these things, you're going to have to reap the consequences yourself. Whereas any degree of socialism, at least to some degree, you're offsetting the cost of your actions into other people. And this has a very dysgenic effect. And it has a dysgenic effect even if it's just socialism for white people. And so my case I've been making is I'm not a libertarian first. I'm not a white nationalist first. I am both equally, because what I realize is that the only way in which I truly believe a white nationalist society to be sustainable is through adopting libertarian legal values. And the only way I think libertarianism can be achieved and sustained is by adopting the alt-right traditional Western European values and being established in a supermajority white community or society. That they go hand in hand, that they mutually reinforce each other. So that's the sort of, in the nutshell, case. But I go into this in more depth in my book, and it goes into far more depth even on my website with various articles that are on there. We talk about these things extensively.
Right. And that leads to another question, which has to do with what happened to you. How do you think we can incentivize employers to not cave to these mobs that come after them?
Well, see, because
you're not pursuing legal action, right?
Right, and there's a big issue
against the
here,
employer.
Because some smart-ass leftists are like, well, hey, you got what you want, freedom of association. And this is true. I think any employer should be allowed to freely associate or disassociate and be able to fire, hire, employ, or serve anyone for any reasons they want to, whether they be racist or whatever. But the issue is this is a very artificial community. Even legally, you are not allowed, you're not permitted to discriminate on the grounds of race, religion, or to some extent political views, unless it's against a straight white, right-leaning conservative male. Then it's okay. So when all other forms of discrimination are outright outlawed, but only one is left open, the result you're going to get isn't something that's representative of what would take place in a truly free market to where freedom of association is really respected. So this isn't the outcome of a free association rate. This is the outcome of when you illegalize and outlaw every other type of discrimination. This is the only discrimination you're going to see take place. And of course, this is also promoted to us. These anti-white diversity, culturally Marxist values are inundated to us through public schools as children. They warp our minds. They, to a sense, brainwash. And of course, public schools aren't possible without the state, without infringements on private property, without coercive laws which have compulsory attendance and everything else. So this sort of cultural makeup of our society today and the preferences people have today have been very much manipulated by the state and manipulated via means which are very anti-libertarian. So just because it's socially acceptable or encouraged and even legally encouraged to discriminate against us does not mean that that's a weakness of the market. That has been a deliberate and long-standing perversion and manipulation of the market via the state and via those who control the state apparatus, which I think we have a pretty good idea of who those people are. So, right. Yeah, that's what I'll say about that.
But okay, so but other than changing the laws, do you think there's anything that could be done?
Yeah. So I'm sorry. I guess I didn't really answer your question.
No, that's okay. I mean,
I don't think changing the. I don't think we're going to be able to change laws directly, and this is why I've been really shifting my focus into more cultural issues, because my political ideals remain the same, but I realize that politics is downstream from culture. You're not going to change the laws unless you change the culture, and the way to change the culture is by doing exactly what the alt-right has done brilliantly, which is we need to make our voices loud. We need to put the memes out there. We need not just to engage people just in the technical arguments and data, which autistic libertarians like myself tend to limit themselves to, but we also need to engage people's passions, their emotions, appeal to their heritage, to their people. And this invokes a very visceral reaction of people. People care much more about their heritage and their people and their survival than they do maybe about an abstract political or economic concept. So once you can appeal to that, once you can generate some response to their very visceral connection and concern with their people's survival, their culture survival, their heritage survival, their just the traditional institutions in which their grandparents and parents before them are brought up in, then at that point you could say, now here are probably the most effective legal means to get there, and then you can make some progress there. But yeah, we have to keep making our voices loud. We need to keep pushing the Overton window to the right. We let the left keep pushing it ever more to the left without saying anything, but we need to start heading the opposite direction. And perhaps we can adopt some of the same techniques as the leftists, because they've been effective. Maybe we can read Alinsky's Rules for Radicals and maybe see what we can employ ourselves. We can learn from the left as far as tactics are concerned, even if they have fucking ridiculous ideas and anti-society ideas.
Where do you come down on the monetary issue? Because that seems to be where everything comes down to, is that these big companies can just shut people out. Is there anything that we can do? The leftists will say, why don't you start your own company? Which, easier said than done, I guess. But
because we're not allowed to discriminate with our companies. It's illegally prohibited.
Yeah. Well, that's the problem, right? Yes. We're in a catch-22.
But yeah, so I think the internet has really allowed us to circumvent the issues that would otherwise be faced by us, where many of these companies have a stranglehold on certain industries. And a stranglehold, by the way, which has only been made possible via collusion with the state. I want to make that clear. So yeah, just having shows like yours, we have this cryptocurrency which we can help fund each other, which seems to be pretty immune to this sort of subversive tactics the leftists employ against us. I've gotten all my Bitcoin donations. Thankfully, I've been able to keep all my PayPal donations as well, though that's a little more risky. But yeah, just continue the cryptocurrency, creating your own social media platforms. You have Gab now. I hear Minds is okay. Of course, we can't wean ourselves entirely from the mainstream platforms because almost no one uses the other ones. So just kind of continuing to encourage people to edge them further right, to edge them to other platforms which are more genuinely free speech, and to keep up the meme wars, keep up the arguments, appeal to people's traditions and cultures and their very survival. and perhaps engage in some of the tactics the leftists themselves have engaged in, as far as like the Alinsky's rules. I'm not saying we should issue death threats or anything like that, nor do I think we should try to get them fired if they have families, especially who are in.
Right. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who are ready to fight fire with fire in terms of, like, we don't care that this pedophile is getting fired because a mob is going after him, like Ben Shapiro does.
Right.
We are concerned about winning, and if possible, we'd like to maintain our principles while doing that. But principles are only good if it's reciprocal, right?
Right, and as far as I'm concerned, I've maintained my principles throughout, and I piss a lot of libertarians off because I've shown them how I'm able to easily maintain my libertarian principles whilst also promoting a very white nationalist message that there is no conflict here. We don't need to give up principle for pragmatism, but we can look at more pragmatic strategy in order to get our principles to manifest in the first place. And again, like, identity politics is a tool the left has used and exploited for a long time, and successfully so. And this is one of their tactics that we need to employ ourselves. We need to revert to identity politics. Identity matters. Nation matters. Race matters. Gender matters. And there's differences between these things and these groups. There are meaningful differences. There's measurable differences. And there are differences which even relate to the ability to achieve a libertarian society itself, and to even achieve a peaceful society. And the irony, the absolute irony of it all, is that the diversity that the left so ostensibly promotes and loves, diversity is maintained the most, is kept at the highest, when we are all allowed to voluntarily segregate into our own homogenous communities. If you forcefully integrate us, mesh us together, we become one amorphous blob.
That's right.
That is rootless and has lost all of its cultural background, heritage, and beauty that made it what it is. We lose all distinction, and at that point, our only allegiance left is that to the state. And that's something I'm trying to convince the libertarians, that you're pursuing the same cultural agenda as the statists and the central bankers and the elites who want control over us. You need to understand you're acting as their useful idiots. In your measures of your cultural Marxism and stuff that you're promoting like this is actually doing much more harm to your cause than your token acknowledgement and token support for free markets and things of this nature.
Yep, libertarians talk about the monopoly of violence. Well, let's time start talking about the monopoly of discrimination.
Yeah.
By the left. Well,
yeah, that's good.
I think that'll do it. I wanted to just give you a chance to come on here and tell people what's going on. You're definitely a friend of the show, of the channel, and like I said earlier in this video, I'm going to be taking a little break in August, but coming back strong in September, and so I look forward to it and look forward to having you back on. So I encourage everyone to go over the links. Check out the links and help Chase and his family out.
Yeah, check out the links to donate. I got PayPal and Bitcoin. Check out radicalcapitalist.org. If you want to buy a copy of my books, you can on Amazon, A Spontaneous Order or White, Right, and Libertarian. They're all in paperback, Kindle, or audio formats.
Very good. Thanks so much, Chase.
Thank you.